Hi and welcome to the subscriber report. Now, usual intro on these videos, especially for people who don't usually watch my channel. This is nothing to do with World of Warcraft subscribers or subscribers to any other game. It's subscribers to this channel. It's basically where I talk about the channel for people who are invested in it, want to know a few things, try and answer a few questions that crop up as well. And what I want to talk about today are what you can do to help and what is going on Patreon and YouTube, because something's changed like in the last week on that as well, and just sort of go over a few things at the end as well that people put on my last subscriber report. This is something I try and do every now and then, not necessarily every month, but I try not to go more than about a month without sort of saying what's going on. Now, at the moment, it's sort of steady as she goes. I'm not doing a massive amount different than I was about a month ago. I tried to make a few changes in terms of, I suppose, thumbnails and titles and tags. Made a bit more of effort there. I sort of noticed that throughout 2017, where the channel has not really grown a great deal, last year was definitely a better year. It probably because I got a bit lazy on some aspects of the post-production. There's, if you think about the sort of 3 stages of making any sort of content for YouTube, you've got the initial planning and stuff like that, and then you've got the actual doing it, getting the video. And then once you've got the video, what you really want to do is just get it on YouTube. But there's actually you can actually spend a lot of time on the stuff that happens between actually having the content created and ready and getting it up there. And I spent a lot less time doing that. It is always really difficult at certain times of the year with work, when work's really hard, like it is at the moment. It's quite tough at work at the moment. But and then there's the raiding side of it as well, and then when you've got and then the channel, so mixing everything in. Some weeks it's better than others, but so that's the only thing I really sort of changed at the moment. There's no big changes I'm planning on reviewing it at the end of the year, and then over Christmas I've got literally, well, what have I got now? Less than 2 weeks, about a week and a half before I have approximately just under 2 weeks off, where I get to chill and actually think things through and see if there's any changes that do need to be made. The only change in the last week, of course, is I changed the name of the Tuesday Talk. That was more for future proofing. The impetus for that one, for those who don't know, I have sort of explained it. For those who don't know, is I changed guilds recently. Now, at the time at which I was planning on moving guilds, I thought there was obviously a realistic prospect I could end up joining a guild that raids on Tuesday. That's going to be a bit of a problem for doing the Tuesday Talk. So I thought, well, I might have to change the name. And then I thought about it a bit more, and I thought, well, even if I don't end up raiding Tuesday and I can still do it on Tuesday, as I can, it might be a good idea to change the name anyway for the following situation. So there has been 1 week where I couldn't put on the Tuesday Talk. That was because something came up at work. I was going to be at work, so that couldn't happen. Or was it? It was something else. It might have been something else. Can't remember now. I've got a feeling it wasn't something to do with work, because they're usually on Wednesdays. Something happened and I couldn't put it on anyway. So it just didn't happen that week. Now I thought, well, in theory you could just move it to another day. But then it sounds silly calling it the Tuesday Talk. So I thought, just in case it has to be moved to a different day, maybe calling it something else. The other thing is, what's prompted the start of the Tuesday Talk in the first place was doing a talk that eventually I would want to roll out more regularly, maybe do several times a week. But I don't have the viewership at the moment to justify that. But then, of course, it's going to need a different name. So I thought, why not future-proof now? Actually, just call it something different now. Get started with, because there has been a dip in people viewing it with the name change just on YouTube. So get people used to that and get the new name out there and just go from there and build it up from there, rather than change it when I have to change it. So that's the reason for that. So in terms of other things that are going on that are peripheral to what I am doing, so there's been changes on Patreon and YouTube. So I'll go through the Patreon first of all. So thanks very much, by the way, for patrons. That's actually really helpful. I know I'm not full-time and don't need it to pay the bills at the moment. Who knows for the future, although it's certainly not looking likely for that. But it does help me get things that are useful for the channel. I get to feed my gadget craze on stuff that actually, because when I think about the equipment I had when I started doing these videos and what I have now, it's loads better now. You can still see it's a little bit deficient. I still need better lighting. I need some lighting there. because sometimes when the natural light isn't good, that's too much in shadow. So I've got these lights here. These lights, if I put them across me, would be brilliant, but then the green screen wouldn't work so well. So I sort of need something like these, but I can put there. You don't know what's there, but I can't put one of these there, so I can't just get another one of these lights. I need to get something else. So I need to try some things out with lighting. But there's always little things to get. So it is really useful for that. It does help pay for certain things and subscriptions and stuff like that. But there is a change coming to Patreon, and I don't think it's a good change. I don't think it's a change. Like, we got this email from Patreon this week, and it's billed as if it's going to be great for patrons, but it's not, as in the creators, sorry. It's not at all, because ultimately it's not good for the people who pledge the money, and if it's not good for the people who pledge the money, it's ultimately not good for the creators. So what has happened is, okay, so here's the deal. When you pledge something to someone on Patreon, obviously it's understood that they're going to take a little cut of that. That's fine, that's fair enough. And then sometimes there's a fee as well when you transfer it with PayPal, but that's a separate thing. So with Patreon, they take a little cut, and it's quite a small amount, so it's actually not too bad. But what they're planning on changing is so that the patron actually pays that fee. So in other words, if you and the amount it is in the email was 2.9% plus 35 cents. So proportionally, of course, that's much more for someone just pledging $1. And the dollar pledge is really nice. Just for some people to just be able to pledge $1 would be brilliant. For people who have a large subscriber base, that'd be fantastic, because you might easily be able to get 3,000 people to all pledge $1. 3,000 people pledging $1 is about, it's obviously not $3,000 because they take their little cut, but it's a very small cut. So it still ends up being a lot. But all of a sudden now, those people won't be charged $1, they'll be charged $1.38. Because 2.9% plus 35 cents. So their pledge is going to go up by 39%. Now, someone with a $10 pledge, well, that goes up 2.9%. So that's going to be, what, 29 cents plus the 35 cents. You know, so that's like 64 cents. That's not so much on top of $10 as 39 cents on $1. So that's actually a bit of a problem. So I'm expecting some people to be able to go, well, you know, I can pledge $1, but especially if they pledge to multiple people, well, it's going to add up. So I won't be able to do that. I know Kira, who does Warcraft logs, who I am a patron of, who's noted on Twitter that there's a number of $10 pledges suddenly disappeared because of this. Where it's even proportionally less. So in actual fact, they could end up losing it. And that's a bit disappointing because it serves a dual purpose, Patreon. One, it's a way, particularly for creators who do want to be full-time and are either building up to be full-time or are actually full-time, to get a decent source of revenue, because YouTube revenue is very up and down, mostly down. And it gives you a way for people to say, well, look, you know, I think your content's worth this, so I'll pledge this. But I think, you know, when you put something like this, it's a bit of a screw to them. And yeah, it serves a dual purpose. So first of all, it's the actual revenue. But second of all, it's building up that community as well. That community of especially committed people, you know, with a forum and stuff like that to discuss ideas for the channel, for the people who really want the channel to succeed. And if those people, you know, feel that they, you know, could pledge $1 but not $1.39 because that's significantly more, then it sort of excludes them from that community. That's a real shame, and that's something creators don't want either. So yeah, I don't think this is very good. I'm hoping that enough people contact Patreon, as I will be, to sort of say, look, we don't really want this. We'd rather take the hit as creators and keep that community than lose part of that community because we're putting that burden on them. Because I think if you pledge $1, that should be $1 should be $1. So I'll tell you what, something people in North America, I don't know, might have a different attitude on this. Because something that I found very strange when I first visited the United States as like a teenager is that we all have VAT. I don't know what you call it in USA, but you have like an amount. Something costs something to shop, and then there's an amount of tax on that, and you sort of have to add that on. In the UK, we also have VAT. It's actually quite a lot, but it's included in the price. So whatever the price is on the product, that's what you pay at the till. Whereas when I was in the United States, it's like if something cost $1, in actual fact, what you're going to hand over, I think at the time it was like $1.06. you know, so when you're getting things, it's like, well, it's going to cost this much, and then it's good for working out percentages. It's good for your math skills, but you know, you're not paying what it says on the price tag. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not including that extra tax. And it's a bit like that on Patreon. You should, you know, if you want to pledge $1, you should be able to pledge $1, and that's what you get charged. So I don't like that, really. But anyway, that's what's happening there. Counter that with YouTube. Now, YouTube have been up to their funniness. Now, I'd already talked about the demonetization thing, but it's taken another twist. Now, the initial demonetization, what sparked it all, of course, ultimately was not YouTube. I give a lot of credit to YouTube, except in this particular case, they have completely dropped the ball. But what happened was there was some very unsavory videos out there getting like ad revenue, and the media went mental on it. Because, of course, the media will attack YouTube. YouTube is a big competitor of traditional media. So they will attack it very unfairly. And, of course, YouTube, unfortunately, don't have any real link with people. They're not like a newspaper organisation. They don't present the news. They're a forum for other people's creations. They don't have a presence themselves. So it's very difficult for them to have any sort of voice within the world, really. It's quite ironic to say they're so big. But the bottom line was they had to bring in this bot that demonetizes what might be considered ad unfriendly stuff. And that basically means demonetizing a lot of stuff. You have to put a manual request in. You know, every time I did that, it did come back clean, but you've lost that revenue because it was demonetized for a certain amount of time. My content in particular, some content's different. Like my content is very, you know, when I bring it out, it's going to get consumed within a few days. You know, YouTube, when you bring out a new video, it gives it a bit of a leg up. So when you have a new video, it gives it extra bounce on the searches for a week. But after a week, I'm not getting really views. Most of my content, most of my videos don't really get any significant number of views, if any, after a few days. You know, I get 2 or 3 days where people will watch my stuff and then they just don't, you know, the number of views sort of sometimes spikes on the second day. It depends when I bring it out. And then it just sort of tails out. It's like a decay curve. And it goes right down to nothing after a few days. So being demonetized even for 1 day is pretty bad. Now, the algorithm was learning and it was getting pretty good. And I got to a point where my stuff just wasn't being demonetized. So a lot of people that complained that it was. Sometimes it's as simple as just the language used and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not very sweary in my videos. I mean, it's a different matter when I'm streaming, because when I'm streaming my raids, I get very sweary. In fact, the reason why I use push to talk, it has a benefit now with streaming because I can talk to the stream without having to, obviously I can't be prattling on with the raid. So it helps now to push to talk, but I've used push to talk for many years, mostly to spare my raid members from my constant muttering and moaning and swearing when things aren't going well. But the stream gets all that. That's one reason why I can't stream on YouTube. I have to do it on Twitch. But what's happened now? So I read this in the news a week or two ago. There's a different problem on YouTube now, and that is people creating content aimed at kids, like small kids that's actually like using cartoon characters and stuff like that. But then the video or the content is very sexually explicit or very violent, gory, that sort of thing. In other words, not the sort of thing that's suitable for small children, but the thumbnail is very much going to be attractive to a small child. So, and the other problem is, that's one problem. The other problem is, and this is what was in the news, and the British news at any rate, which doesn't seem to have exploded like the other stuff, but it's still there, in that there was content that's been put on YouTube by children. In other words, although there's supposed to be an age limit for when you can have an account, there's clearly people a bit younger than that. But basically, kids are doing their own content, which should, you know, in theory, be encouraged. You know, getting creative, but they're doing their content up there. The problem is, it's a bit of a magnet for paedophiles. So there's been a lot of comments on videos like this that are of a sexually explicit nature, directed towards the child. And so this has blown up another little storm that, you know, is not acceptable. And then when, you know, I was reading this thing on the BBC News, and when they were digging into it and finding that the people who were in charge of sort of policing this were often not given the tools by YouTube to be able to flag it properly. And basically, YouTube systems have not allowed this content to be taken down quickly enough. Even though there's people on behalf of YouTube, like the same people that review my stuff when it's been demonetized, when they're trying to review this, it's like they can't properly flag it. The tools are not there to properly flag this content, something like that. So, bit of a problem there. As a result of this, it looks very much like, even though I haven't heard anything definite, it's pretty clear that demonetization bot has been changed again, which means it's got to start from the beginning. I first noticed something was up when this week all of my videos were demonetized. So remember, I've gone from a position where for the last month, I think one video was demonetized and was quickly remonetized, to all of a sudden all of this last week's have been demonetized. And even though it's the same sort of content. So it's clearly the bot has been given different instructions as a result of this. And now I put a video up on today, and that's all been cleaned, by the way. It's all been cleared now, but I lost a good day. And remember, I only get 1 or 2 days to get all my views and stuff like that. So that's going to be a massive hit on not only the number of views. The number of views at the moment is most important to me because it's only by views that the channel will grow. But there's going to be something else which I'm going to come to in a minute that you can help with that as well. But also the revenue. Now, the revenue, it's not a full-time revenue I'm getting from it. If it was, then that would be extra damaging. But I just put a video out today that was demonetized immediately. And what it says is, now I don't know if I'm a big enough subscriber to get away with this. A smaller subscriber definitely wouldn't. So the rule is, generally speaking, when you've got demonetized content, they won't review it until it gets at least 1,000 views within a week. So if it never gets up to that, then you're not going to get it monetized. Now, if it never gets to 1,000 views, you're not getting any significant amount off it anyway, so forget about it. But the problem is in my situation, if it demonetizes it after a day, well, it's already got a bit of momentum by then. If it doesn't, they say, because here's the thing, if you don't monetize content, the YouTube algorithm don't plug it as much. They say that's not the case, but it is. Obviously, YouTube have put a lot of things in place recently, or in the last year or two, specifically to try and improve their profitability. Fair enough, it's a business. So to be told that whether your content's monetized or not makes no difference on whether they'll promote it or not, I don't believe. So while it's demonetized, it's not just that it's not making any revenue for me. It's not making any for YouTube because there's no ads on it. Now, I don't put ads on this one, for example. That's not because it's demonetized. It's because this is subscribable. It's not my normal content. I don't monetize this one. But the other ones, if you see any of my videos and there's no ads showing on it, and it's a new video, that's because it's been demonetized. So that's hurting them as much as it is me. So they're not going to put any effort into promoting that because it's not generating them any income. So it also has a knock-on effect in terms of potential growth with that video. And that's what's caused a lot of creators to really scale back their YouTube content, because some content creators are not only being demonetized, but permanently, like, it doesn't get cleared just because the nature of their content doesn't get cleared. So that's where we are with YouTube as well. So it's another round. We're going to have to wait another few months for it to learn that my content's fine and to get back up there. And then maybe something else will happen. It'll be starting from scratch again and again and again. But anyway, in terms of what people can do, because I sometimes get comments saying, well, you know, I can't afford to pledge on Patreon, but I do like your channel, stuff like that. That's absolutely great. That's fine. There is actually something you can do. It's no surprise that you hear creators do this at the ends of videos, but it really, I think sometimes people don't appreciate just how much of a help it is. And that is, if you're going to, I'm not saying watch all my videos, but obviously watching videos really helps. Or any content creator you like, if you watch their videos, if their videos are playing, then YouTube's looking at it and going, oh, people like that video. And if you're watching it all the way through, all to the better. Now, I'm not saying do watch it all the way through. If it's boring, it's boring. But the other thing you can do that is really helpful is we ask at the end of it, don't we, for the like and the comment. Okay, as well as the subscribe. If you're watching this, you probably are a subscriber. And the reason for that is, it's not just that a like makes us feel all good inside and that a comment is something to read when we're bored. It's that it actually helps the video grow as well. Likes or any is a form of engagement. If you can take the time to click on that button, it might not be much to you, but to YouTube algorithm, it's like people are engaging with this content. Okay, this is the sort of content that's going to keep people on YouTube. If you carry on watching it, or if you click another video after it, then that's also the YouTube algorithm. Oh, people stay on YouTube after watching this video. And then if you comment, again, that's getting involved. Now, one little word of warning on the comments. Someone replied recently about me deleting one of their comments. Now, I have never deleted a comment, ever, on my channel. I'm not into censorship. However, what probably happened in that particular situation, I've not checked, is like if I'm looking at my comments like I'm looking at the moment, there's 3 tabs of comments. There's published comments, held for review, likely spam. The held for review is a newish tab this year. I think that's because of this algorithm, this new bot. So if there's a comment which this algorithm deems to be a bit dodgy, as in ad unfriendly, it goes into there. Now, I've generally not prioritized reading through some of those because there's usually a good reason for it. It's pretty good, actually, this bot. Most of them are offensive or like unnecessarily sweary or explicit in some other way. And you sort of feel, well, I probably should, because I can manually like put it up there. Now, every now and then I've looked at a comment, I thought, well, the comment's fine. It's just using some bad language. I'll just okay it. I am going to take the view now that I'm not going to do that because it's not just my content that determines whether something becomes demonetized or flagged or for whatever reason. It's the comments as well, which means I'm now going to take the view that if a comment has been held for review, the algorithm is not very happy with it, and I'm going to have to leave it in that state. So if I can ask when people do comment that they just make sure that it's not, there's no offensive words, and even if it's not an offensive comment, because sometimes people use like curse words, and they don't use it offensively, they're just using it. But if we just try and avoid that, just try and make sure the comment is, you know, is just a normal comment. The likely spam tab is usually when either people have written wall of text, which actually sometimes stays in and sometimes doesn't. I don't get that. But more likely when people put a link in it. Now, if people have put a link in it, sometimes there's a good reason to do that. So I do more often check the likely spam one just in case it's a link to like raid bots or something like that that I know is fine. And I generally okay that. But bear in mind, I'm not going to okay it until I've checked the link out myself. And I'm not going to prioritize checking people's links. So if it's possible to make the comment without a link, then probably do that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're trying to prove something to me for which there needs to be a link, and that's fair enough. But yeah, just try and avoid it. And if you're going to use a link, make sure it's a link that I'm not going to look at and think, ooh, I don't really want to link. You know, some links just look dodgy. Try not to put a link in that's just going to look dodgy, because I'm not going to click on it either, and I'm certainly not going to okay it. So just a little comment on that. But yeah, the comments and the likes do wonders. Like if everyone that watched my videos liked and commented, then it would get many more views because YouTube would promote it more. Now the comments, obviously, it's better if they're relevant comments. Sometimes people just put comments for the sake of comments, which is very nice. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming because the bot is pretty good at discerning what comments mean, because the fact is a lot of the ones that are in the held for review tab are right. You can see why it's put them in there. So I'm gonna guess a relevant comment is better than just a standard comment. But again, the YouTube algorithm, I think, just takes the view that if you've taken the time to do any sort of comment, that you're engaged with the video, and therefore it's worth promoting. So in terms of the sort of things you can do, then there's that one. Now, in terms of some comments, I had a lot of comments on the last subscriber report, and a couple of contradictory ones. And these are some, just to sort of bear in mind what I sort of do with these, because sometimes you do get contradictory ones, as in some people saying, oh, this aspect of the channel is really good. Some people saying, well, actually, you should change this aspect of the channel. And it is a difficult one sometimes to get around, because I can see the benefit on both sides. Like if there's one side I agree with, obviously I go with that. But, you know, sometimes you see the benefit. So a lot of my videos are quite podcasty, as people have noted, which means there isn't usually a lot going on in the background, specifically because I know a lot of people will listen to it while they're doing something else. And I sort of see that as a bit of a benefit as well, because if I'm just going to talk about something, isn't it better that people, they're more likely to watch the whole thing, inverted commas, if they're doing world quests and stuff, than if they're having to physically watch it, where they might just click away at some point. That being said, some people say if they're going to watch it anyway, if they're not actually playing the game at the time, they're on their mobile or something like that, they want some eye candy in the background. So it is sometimes a bit difficult. Do I just show my latest raid escapades in the background, or Mythic Plus dungeon or something like that? Or do I show just a normal background so people don't feel they need to watch it and they can just listen to it instead? Little bit trickier. Maybe I should sort of do some of one and some of the other, because it is a tricky one to get right. But I have had some people commenting that they would like to see the stuff going in the background, and some people saying actually it's good that there isn't stuff going in the background. So that's just one of the things I sometimes have to go with there. One comment I did get though was, I'll just sort of read out there. It says, I'd very much like videos where you give your insight into as a mythic raider. Yeah, it is possible that, I don't know whether I've been doing less of this or something, maybe because I've been streaming. So people will tend to get, obviously not everyone can watch my streams. Although the videos are still there. You know, the videos remain on my Twitch to be watched after I finish streaming. I'm not expecting people to actually go and watch them though, because they're obviously quite long and most of it will just be nonsense, me breathing into the mic. But yeah, when I'm talking about, because I do tend to do a lot of the talking about the encounters as I'm doing them. Of course, at the moment, I'm not going to be full on into Mythic because I've joined a guild recently that already has a sizable roster. I knew I was going to be doing this because I sort of prefer to stay Alliance. I had an option of a Horde guild where it's much more likely to go in, but I did want to stay Alliance if I could, and I've joined very late on. So I'm not an established part of the core raid team. So I'm not really getting into a lot of Mythic at the moment. At some point, obviously I will, and then I'll be able to make some comments. But I'm sort of okay with that. I'd sort of blown out Antorus anyway. For me, anything I get to do in Antorus is a bonus. It feels a little bit like Dragon Soul. Dragon Soul is the tier in Cataclysm where I came back. I had a sizable break after like the second version of Nax when I wasn't happy with the game. Came back for Dragon Soul, thinking to myself, I'll just experience the game, get myself into it, and then get into a new guild in the next expansion, which would have been Mists of Pandaria. As it happens, I got into a raiding guild for Dragon Soul. I managed to get myself geared up quite quickly and got into a raiding guild. But again, you know, and I just treated it as a bonus because I wasn't expected to do that. This is sort of the same thing. Anything that I get to do in Antorus is a bonus. But yeah, I at some point will sort of offer my views. I've been offering some views actually in my Antorus review earlier today, talking about Mythic. You would have thought at the same point in Tomb of Sargeras, I was only talking about it from heroic and normal point of view because I'd not really experienced Mythic. Well, I still haven't really experienced Mythic, but I've been observing a few things about Mythic. So I've talked quite a bit about Mythic in there as well. But yeah, is that sort of balance about talking about stuff from a heroic point of view and from a Mythic point of view. Is something I can certainly consciously think about a bit more. Sometimes you sort of think you've done it because you've talked about it, but you've talked about it on stream. It's not the same as a video. But anyway, that's hopefully got you caught up with what is going on. As I say, a lot of it is based on external stuff that's sort of outside my control. But thanks very much for watching. If you watched it up to this far, and if you've got any comments at all, I do especially read it. I try and read comments where I can. Obviously, as you know from the mailbox, I respond to some comments as well, like in a longer way. But if you do have comments specifically about the video, this is a great place to put them. I always sort of make a point of reading the comments on these videos, because that's me asking for stuff. It's me asking for feedback. So thanks very much for your support, and until next time, I'll see you later.